Every currency dies the same way. Not with a bang, but with a sentence people stop believing. We trust a number on paper, a balance on a screen, a promise from a minister. Then one day the coffee seller wants dollars instead, or gold, or bread. The bank sets a limit on withdrawals. The exchange rate moves before the news does. Money doesn't need a funeral. It only needs silence. No bids, no faith, no way back. Welcome to Money Lore. 6 crashes, 1 lesson. Why currencies keep failing. Start in ancient Rome, where the silver denarius once bought trust across an empire. For centuries, it held a near-pure content of silver. Then emperors discovered the oldest budget trick in history. Stretch the metal. A little copper in the mix. A thinner coin with a proud face. The army still had to be paid. The circuses still had to roar. By the 3rd century, the denarius was mostly show. Prices ran, trade slowed. Tax collectors began taking payment in kind because metal meant less each season. Rome didn't just debase coin, it debased confidence. And confidence, once clipped, doesn't remint easily. Leap to Weimar Germany, 1923. The government owed war reparations in hard currency and salaries at home. It chose to print. At first, the presses bought time. Then the presses bought nothing. Wages were paid twice a day because prices doubled between noon and dusk. A loaf of bread cost billions of marks. The lesson wasn't that printing is evil. It was simpler. When a state issues claims far faster than an economy can produce goods, prices do the accounting. Paper tells a story. Production writes the ending. Cross to Argentina in the 1990s. After years of inflation, the country chained its money to America's. 1 peso, $1. For a while it worked. Imports got cheaper, inflation fell, but a fixed rate is a promise with homework. You must collect enough dollars through exports, investment, or savings to defend the peg when trouble knocks. Argentina didn't. Deficits persisted, debt piled in foreign currency, growth stalled, and capital left. When the peg finally broke, deposits were frozen, savings were converted, and the peso found its level the hard way. A peg without the reserves and discipline to match is not stability, it is a fuse. Now Thailand, 1997, and the crisis that spread through Asia. The baht was informally tied to the dollar. Property boomed, banks borrowed abroad, and companies took dollar loans because the rates were lower, assuming the exchange rate wouldn't move. When speculators tested the peg, reserves bled. Thailand let the baht float. The currency fell, and suddenly every dollar loan got heavier in local terms. Indonesia and South Korea followed. Factories that were profitable at 25 to the dollar weren't at 50. The moral wasn't about speculators. It was about currency mismatch. Borrow in a money you don't earn, and a bad week in FX can erase a decade in business. Now, Zimbabwe, 2008. The government printed to pay bills the economy wouldn't. Z dollar notes reached trillions. Prices doubled so often that menus went blank. People began trading in bread, fuel, US dollars, anything with a story more credible than the local paper. The state didn't just lose control of inflation, it lost the conversation about what counted as money. When your citizens prefer foreign cash and cooking oil to your national currency, you no longer run a monetary system. You run a ration queue. Finally, Lebanon, 2019 to 2021. The banks had advertised high interest to attract deposits, many from the diaspora, in dollars. Behind the glass, those dollars were lent to the government and to the central bank, which supported an exchange rate the economy couldn't sustain. When confidence cracked, depositors found the doors technically open, but practically closed. Withdrawals were capped, transfers abroad were denied, the currency collapsed on the street. It wasn't classic hyperinflation. It was a banking freeze, a reminder that your money in the bank is a loan to an institution, and in a sovereign crisis, the institution can decide not to pay you back on time. 6 different eras, 1 pattern. Rome shaved silver because the state's promises outran its revenues. Weimar printed because obligations outran production. Argentina promised a dollar without earning enough dollars. Asia borrowed in someone else's money and paid the exchange rate instead of the interest rate. Zimbabwe tried to replace goods with ink. Lebanon converted trust into yields until there was none left. The vocabulary changes: debasement, hyperinflation, devaluation, capital controls. But the logic does not. When claims, wages, pensions, bonds, pegs grow faster than the capacity of an economy to deliver goods and taxes in the currency promised, something must give. Sometimes prices rise. Sometimes the exchange rate snaps. Sometimes the banking system rations belief with daily limits. All three are the same correction wearing different uniforms. There's a quieter rhythm inside each failure. First, the easy period. Politicians enjoy the benefits: higher spending, steady pegs, cheap foreign loans, low rates. The public enjoys calm numbers, a smooth CPI, a strong currency, a smiling budget. Second, the strain. Reserves slip, deficits widen, imports exceed exports, lenders ask harder questions, savers begin to hedge in commodities or foreign cash. Third, the event. A peg breaks, a central bank capitulates, a government restructures, a bank limits withdrawals. The press calls it sudden. It was slow. You can measure the timetable in the years when the arithmetic didn't add up and everyone agreed not to notice. Why does the pattern repeat if history keeps shouting the answer? Because money is a mirror. It reflects our incentives. Debt lets today thank tomorrow. Pegs let politics borrow foreign credibility. Printing lets pain arrive gently before it arrives all at once. And when the bill comes due, it lands unevenly, first on savers, then on wages, then on anyone whose life is priced in the weaker money. The people who decide policy often own the assets that rise first. The people who carry cash own the story that ends last. So what's the lesson you can actually use without a PhD? Listen for verbs, not adjectives. When leaders describe a currency, you'll hear strong, stable, trusted. That's marketing. The verbs tell the truth. Print, borrow, cap, defend, peg, index, freeze. If you hear too many verbs that move numbers without moving production, believe the verbs. Watch for mismatches. If a country pegs to the dollar but can't earn dollars, the peg is theater. If banks promise short-term deposits but hold long-term, illiquid assets, the convenience today is a line tomorrow. If companies borrow in foreign money because it's cheaper, they are betting their lives on a chart they don't control. And remember the hierarchy of value. In every collapse, people run first to what the system can't conjure by decree: outside currency, food, energy, productive businesses, skills. Rome's tax collectors took grain. Weimar survivors owned shops. Asia's survivors earned dollars. Lebanon's survivors had accounts abroad and or assets at home that fed them while the screens lied. The point isn't romance about gold or cynicism about paper. It's clarity about capacity. Claims are negotiable. Capacity is not. If this sounds grim, note the other side of the rhyme. Recovery begins the moment a government tells the truth and pays it. Sometimes that means a float instead of a peg, higher rates instead of slogans, a smaller budget instead of a bigger promise, audits instead of adjectives. After Volcker, the dollar became trustworthy, not because it loved pain, but because it proved it would use pain to defend purchasing power. After Argentina finally marked the peso to reality, the economy could breathe again, until it forgot and repeated the cycle. The cure is dull: produce more than you promise, tally honestly, borrow in the money you earn, and leave room for bad weather. 6 crashes. 1 lesson: money is a story we agree to believe, until arithmetic ends the story for us. If you want to know whether a currency will last, don't ask what leaders call it. Ask what they do when the math gets hard. If this gave you a clearer way to hear the signals before the sirens, subscribe. History keeps the receipts. Money lore reads them out loud.